Thank you very much, Ivan, and I'm very pleased to be here. What I want to do today is practically go through, reading through the text that is published, as it was said, part of the exhibition. That means it's a work in the exhibition, and a third part of this work is actually a theoretical text, which is not functioning as some kind of explanation, but is a constitutive part of the work itself. So where I'm standing now, I was thinking in relation to Hannes, what he was explaining and in which way he presented these economical pillars. My position is that I'm trying first to think about global capitalism through, let's say, a cultural point of view, but not as a kind of culturalization of the political, but to see in which way these processes that was presented, for example, these changing processes of the so-called former Eastern Europe are possible to be seen in a much larger overview of what global capitalism means, in which kind of logic it functions on the level of ideology, on the level of culture, on the level actually of changing also a certain vocabulary, of understanding the processes that are initiated, that are put forward by capital. So one possible subtitle of this text that is also in the publication can be a certain process of change that I call a process of change from nation state to war state. And this process of change from nation state to war state is also a process of what we can see today if we think about global capitalism, also in Europe. So I will say that what was presented until now, it was actually a kind of a neoliberal constitution of a national state that is a part of this global capitalism. But the question is then, if this was a process with former Eastern Europe, what is going on, I say, in the old, not former, but actually Western Europe. So in Western European context, these imperial states are changing from a national state to a war state. And I would like now to think in many levels, in many ways, also cut what this means. So it's some parts that I named them. For example, I will start with the first part, which I call the part with the processes of capital, depolitization, and also a process of relation to technology. Capital constantly upgrades itself, giving an impression of moving towards the future, though, in fact, it's taking us back to the past eras of slavery. It works through different mechanisms, and the present financial crisis, which is the effect of a process of financialization of capital, is just one of them. Fear is also included in those mechanisms. What are these fears? Losing a job, of being expelled from the social and political space of the neoliberal everyday life, of being marginalized, segregated and excluded from the law, and therefore being unable to speak publicly and formulate the demands attacking the situation of exploitation. But this is only one point. On the other part, all these processes, marginalization, segregation, exclusions, are already part on and are already implied on other populations, on other parts of society. On the contrary, we are constantly asked, when these processes are going on, to be patient, reasonable, and to accept almost silently the exploitative conditions, to accept the surveillance. And this question of being patient, of being understandable, is connected with the process that is today called being tolerant. tolerance is actually imposed as kind of a new social mode or how to behave to these processes of exploitation, segregation, discrimination, and so on. But what tolerance does? Tolerance practically takes the political out. So this way how capital function in way of giving the impression of moving on is also connected with the whole process that is the process of depolitization. All these mechanisms are producing a homophobic society, a society that is against everybody who is not silently normal, like this, not accepting the exploitative way of working, thinking, and living. One outcome of this is that a society becomes sterile and politically dead, where people are no longer able to think of any kind of alternatives. And actually, also before it was said that the question of alternatives is really an important point, but it seems that these alternatives are not existing. The outcome is a permanent state of exception that makes contemporary societies sterile, incapable of thinking alternatively, and therefore transforming them into politically dead societies. And one of the points of today, so to call neoliberal global capitalist society, is that they are completely politically dead. So they are depoliticized. As I said, many other terms are used. One of them definitely tolerance, to be tolerant in order, but not to be actually political, to try to question what and how these processes are going on. These produce loss of jobs and the fear of migrants and of diversity. In the last analysis, the crisis functions as the basic regulator of life and is far from weakening capitalism as a world order. So this disorder is actually already a process of this, what is called financialization of capital or capitalism. And I would say, because I want also to tackle specifically this ideological cultural setting, that this financialization of capitalism brings an important process that affects, for example, the place where we stand, that is different institution of cultural and education. And one of these is definitely that I try to develop to this financialization of capitalism or of capital is financialization of cultural institution. This financialization means precisely the same logic, that means the logic of fear, the logic of actually exploitation, control, surveillance that is imposed but also embraced by the cultural and educational institutions that we have in the present moment in the global capitalism that we live. Capital produces and reproduces itself through economic, social and political disruptions and with the help of science and new media technology. As early as at the end of the 70s, it had already been claimed by Christopher Lasch, a Mexican theoretician, that the notion of technological determinism, a kind of blind belief in technology, is at the base of all popular comprehensions of industrial and technological revolutions. Nevertheless, he argued, we have to be aware that new inventions, new processes, and new application of scientific discoveries do not put forward the changes in ameliorating production as well. Here, technology is used in the process of production to make it more efficient, rational, and to produce more surplus value, but not to improve our lives and labor conditions. And when these inventions are used in the process of reproduction, then it is for the sake of the new organization of labor processes, and I transform this in even bigger exploitation through rationalizations and efficiencies. In such a condition, technological changes are easily absorbed into the existing social capitalist structures. Therefore, according to Lasch, far from revolutionizing the society, technological inventions primarily reinforce the existing privileges and the appropriation of surplus value only by capital. It is actually a paradox. Technology efficiency is in the end supporting only those who organize the production in order to extract bigger profit, capitalists and high-level managers. The second point that I want to tackle is actually what is with the mode of life in global capitalism. One of the present theses is that today capitalism is clearly biopolitics. That means that presents a radical institutionalization, control, and subjugation of life. The point of contemporary capitalism is that it's directly affecting and intervening into life. And this is also why, instead of, for example, talking about art, I will say contemporary art, the aesthetics of art production, it's actually even more politically needed to talk about the mode of life. Because through the mode of life is actually possible to understand also many of these cultural and artistic processes. This situation of taking or thinking about the biopolitics as being a radical institutionalization and control and subjugation of life, I argue, needs to be repoliticized, intensified by changes brought with the modes of management of life that are possible to be seen historically and presently outside the first capitalist world. These modes are no longer named biopolitics, but I claim necropolitics. With this differentiation between biopolitics and necropolitics, and I will explain now what this means, what are the consequences, I also think that it is necessary to do this move and to actually think about history of biopolitics from the present moment of global capitalism in order really to understand all these processes of exploitation, to understand actually the intensity of these exploitations and to actually name them in, so to say, proper way. What do I want to say? What is the difference between biopolitics and necropolitics? Biopolitics is a horizon of articulating contemporary capitalist societies from the so-called politics of life. That means it's a point of view that where life, it does not matter anymore if we make a reference to George Agamben, if it's a naked life, as he said, that means you have a life but nothing else, or is life as with the forms. It means you have a style, you have a certain kind of life. Where this life is seen as 0 degree of intervention of each and every politics into contemporary societies. That means it's a point of view that is making the surveillance, the processes of capitalization and so on, but doing this all the time is emphasized that what is about making a better life. So, as I said, also we say tolerance is needed, rationalizations are needed, and so on, but the optics that is given in a public through the point of, so to call interpretation, the